الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So in continuing with this series where we're discussing the book that is called Mukhtasar Ahadith al-Siyam, Ahkam wa Adab by Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan, Hafidullah, Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So we had covered concerning Ahadith from 1 to Hadith number 7, and today inshallah ta'ala that we'll continue discussing other the Hadith that the author Rahimu have mentioned in this particular book. So he mentioned regarding Hadith, that he mentioned the 8th Hadith, and he mentioned concerning this particular Hadith that discussed concerning he mentioned regarding urging spending freely and generously. So discuss concerning those matters that relate concerning al-hath fi hath ala al-badl wal-jud. So regarding concerning the Muslim, that regarding of those things that relates to Ramadan, that the Muslim should be one who shows generosity in this month of Ramadan. So he mentioned regarding this matter regarding the hadith of an Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أجود الناس وكان أجود ما يكون في رمضان حين يلقاه جبريل وكان يلقاه في كل ليلة من رمضان فيدارسه القرآن فالرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام أجود بالخير من ريح المرسلة متفق عليه. So he mentioned this particular hadith, that the meaning of the hadith of Ibn Abbas anhu, that it mentioned that the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the most generous and kindness of people, and he was the most generous in the month of Ramadan. When he met Jibreel, he used to meet him every night in Ramadan to study the Quran with him. The Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was more generous with good than the flowing wind. And he mentioned a hadith in the Bukhari and Muslim. So the hadith is mentioned with Imam Bukhari and also Imam Muslim, rahimahullah, tabarak wa ta'ala. So from this hadith, that the author, that he wants to encourage regarding of those things that one should be mindful of, that relates to Ramadan, is regarding the encouragement regarding of showing generosity. So the Muslim showing kindness and generosity in this month of Ramadan. So they mentioned regarding concerning that the hadith, as mentioned of those points, that they mentioned that كان رسول الله عليه السلام أجود الناس, that in general concern the Prophet Islam was the most kindness and the most generous of people, regarding concerning that in giving and sharing what he had. So they mentioned that the person who's that kindness is that he would give without people even asking. So the Prophet Islam regarding this kindness is when he would give without people asking for those things. So that's concerning a level of generosity. And also the Prophet ﷺ, that whenever anyone will ask of something, then he would always offer it. If anyone was to ask him of something, then he will give that person that thing that was asked of. So it shows his level of generosity. So he mentioned that in general regarding his generosity, his kindness, regarding of doing of good for others, that he was the best amongst the people. He was the best amongst the people. Then it mentioned wakana. So it shows regarding that generosity and being kind and helpful towards others, whether by way of our wealth or by way of our actions and the likes, then those things are generally encouraged amongst the Muslim. And also it shows that it is something of a praiseworthy characteristic for a person to have, which is the person being said to be jawad, the person said to be kind and have a jud. So often he mentioned wakana أجود ما يكون في رمضان. So also regarding this matter concerning his generosity of the Prophet Islam, that even more so in the month of Ramadan, this will increase. So in the month of Ramadan, that the Prophet Islam will show more generosity and kindness and being helpful towards others in the month of Ramadan. So again, it shows regarding that encouragement regarding Ramadan, that the person doing more regarding even good deeds. So regarding a person trying to put more effort in doing of good deeds in the month of Ramadan, so the person add to what he will normally do. So they showed in the month of Ramadan. And I mentioned that Yalqahu Jibreel. So Jibreel alayhi salam, who's the angel, who's the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving the responsibility, the duty of taking wahi, revelation to the Anbiya. So Jibreel alayhi salam, one of the Anbiya, one of the angels, one of the more famous and of the great of the angels, that he was the one who had the responsibility of taking revelation to the Anbiya. So Jibril alayhi salam, that he will meet the Prophet alayhi salam every Ramadan. So that meeting between himself and the Prophet alayhi salam, it will occur yearly in the month of Ramadan. So, and of those things he mentioned, وَكَانَ يَلْقَاهُ فِي كُلِّ لَيْلَةٍ مِنَ رَمَضَانٍ فَيَدَارِسَهُ الْقُرْآنِ. And of those reasons, and of the meeting, of those things that they will do when they meet, that they will be involved concerning that studying of the Quran. So the Prophet ﷺ would read to him the Quran, and Jibril will listen to him reciting to him the Quran. So that type of study of the Quran between both the Prophet ﷺ and the angel Jibril ﷺ. So it shows regarding that a person also reading the Quran to another. It shows regarding that of those things that which is the student reading to his teacher regarding the Quran, and the Quran, it is taken shafawi, and the Quran is to be read upon a person, and that's the correct way of studying the Quran. But from the hadith, it shows regarding of those things that the Prophet ﷺ would also do on a regular basis concerning with Ramadan in particular, that he would go over the Quran with Jibreel. So it shows regarding that He ﷺ in the month of Ramadan giving time to the Quran. So giving time to the Quran, where in this month will be the time that he will show that the Muslim in that time in the month of Ramadan, that is the month of the Quran. That is the month of the Quran, where a person try to read and give more attention to the Quran. So by right of reciting the Quran more often in the month of Ramadan, and do so on a daily basis. So the Prophet ﷺ, he would do so every night with the angel alayhi salam. So it shows regarding that a person going over the Quran in the month of Ramadan. So of those efforts that you will be involved in regarding the month of Ramadan, that you will be involved in of things of khair, of doing good towards others, that you will increase in this. And also of those things that you would do, you would study the Quran in the month of Ramadan. And it mentioned the Prophet ﷺ ajwad bil khair, that he was concerned that the most foremost of doing of good. So it shows regarding the Muslim trying to be as generous, so as showing his generosity at all times regarding all those things of goodness. So anything that is of goodness, that a Muslim should try to be of those who are involved in doing of good. Then I mentioned min riya and mursala, concerned that Islam, that he was hasty in doing of good. So not that the person that's wanting or thinking and contemplating about doing good, but the person asks the Muslim that he tries to carry out those things. So to be hasty in carrying out concerning doing things of good. So it shows so from this, it also teaches the Muslim regarding that we are to avoid concerning being, as they said, delaying of doing of good, and also to procrastinate in doing things of good, but rather the person that he be hasty in carrying out acts of goodness. So from those, the hadith that is mentioned hereby regarding this particular matter, which is to show regarding that urging the Muslim that in Ramadan, the person also spending regarding those things of goodness that will be of benefit to the Muslim and to the Ummah. So and of those things regarding of spending and showing generosity in the month of Ramadan, this is of the time for the person to increase in this. So it is expected for the Muslim to show generosity throughout the year in all the months, but more so in Ramadan to increase this. So it showed that a particular month, more so Ramadan, in increasing in doing of good, because the month of khair, a month of goodness. So as mentioned, so the Muslim tried to show this generosity, and that generosity can be done in various ways. The generosity can be carried out in various ways. Of those ways in Ramadan, that the Muslim regarding that in spend, tasaddaq, giving in charity, regarding concerning building of masajid, and also the maintenance of masajid, especially in the West, where the masajid are not put that there, they rely upon the local community to maintain them. So it shows regarding of those things concerning ajud, regarding concerning helping the masajid, helping concerning the orphans, providing food for those who may not have sufficient food for Ramadan to have suhoor or iftar. Also regarding helping, assisting concerning those who are the needy, also the senior ones, the elders in the community. So the person is somewhat in various ways of doing of good in the month of Ramadan, but is finding those paths, those ways of goodness in the month of Ramadan, and trying to be involved in them. So here Islam kind of somewhat he said, and also he showed that is something observed by Ibn Abbas. So Ibn Abbas that mention of the things that something mentioned that he observed and saw in the Prophet Islam regarding the thing that he would be involved in. So it shows regarding concerning that others observing, people observing others doing of good and mention of this and speaking of this. And as we mentioned, and the Prophet Islam concerning his life, that it is somewhat open for observation, as the Muslim is expected to look to his life and try to imitate and to follow his example. So this is of those things that Salam would be involved in regarding Ramadan. So he would set aside certain particular things for the month of Ramadan regarding certain actions and certain things that he would do. So it shows regarding dedicating certain things regarding Ramadan, and of those things of priority is regarding the Quran. So a time that one give attention to the Quran, and has been stated concerning of the Salaf that in the month of Ramadan that they'll stop their normal lessons regarding teaching of feek and the likes, and they'll kind of somewhat more concentrate regarding matters that relate to the Quran, concerning lessons that relate to the Quran. So the Muslim giving attention regarding the Quran in the month of Ramadan, and also being kind and generous in the month of Ramadan. So those are some of the benefits that can be taken regarding the month of Ramadan. As mentioned, the Shaykh mentioned, include the ways of giving of charity during Ramadan, which is concerning preparing food for others, even inviting others for iftar, providing people suhoor, helping those who are the needy. So in general, the person try to do what he's able to do regarding of whatever good that he can do in the month of Ramadan, and to try to increase of his action in the month of Ramadan. So the person tried to add and to increase of the things that he would normally do in the month of Ramadan. As the Prophet Islam, he set that example regarding Ajwad ma yakun fi Ramadan, that he was even more so generous in the month of Ramadan. So that inshallah of those things that is mentioned regarding, and it's mentioned that in the month of Ramadan is a mawsum al-khair. So the month of Ramadan is a time that of khair. So as mentioned before concerning Abwab al-Jannah maftuh, that the doors of Jannah that they've been open, and also Ighlaq Abwab an-Nar. So that opportunity is a time, is a mawsum, is that period of the year where the Muslim is able to involve himself in doing of good, and also that there's factors that aid him in doing of good. There's other factors that are there to assist him in carrying out things of goodness, which is the so that's concerning that particular hadith. And with that, inshallah, we move to the hadith that follows, that the author, that Ahadith have mentioned. So he mentioned concerning the hadith that follows. He mentioned, أن أبي هريرة عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من نسي وهو صائم فأكل أو شرب فليتم صومه فإنما أطعمه الله وسقاه متفق عليه. So as concerning the next hadith is mentioned in this series will be concerning hadith number 9, that is mentioned by the author Ahadith regarding matters that relates to Ramadan. So of those actions that he mentioned, of those things regarding Ramadan, is regarding this particular hadith that relates to the ahkam of siyam. This hadith, it relates concerning of those ahkam that relates directly to the act of siyam, of fasting. So he mentioned regarding this particular heading that he states regarding concerning this matter, that he mentioned hukum man akala aw sharib nasiyan, the one who eats or drink out of forgetfulness. So regarding of the rulings that pertain to the person who may eat or drink out of forgetfulness. So what is the ruling? What is to be done in such a case? And from this particular hadith, as I mentioned, man nasiya, the person who out of forgetfulness, that also the Muslim at times may do things out of forgetfulness. So what's the ruling that applies to this? So he mentioned several rulings can be taken from this particular hadith, but from this the hadith, it shows concerning that it shows that the hadith and evidence that is used regarding that a person who eats or drinks out of forgetfulness, then this act is not held against him. So it is not count or held against him by the person eating or drinking out of forgetfulness. And rather, the person's siyam is still considered to be valid. So for the person, when he realizes what he has done or remembers, then he would stop this act of eating and drinking, and then he will continue his siyam. From this hadith, ulama mentioned that it mentioned aklu wa sharb, regarding the mention concerning the person eating and drinking out of forgetfulness, but this applied to any of the acts of the thing they call mufsidat as-siyam. So if the person was to carry out concerning that of more eating, drinking, relation and the likes out of forgetfulness, then this is not held against him. This is not count against his siyam. So this shows concerning the mercy of Islam regarding concerning these things that are done amdan, that the person done out willfully, and there's things that are done at times unintentionally. And they are looked upon differently. They are looked upon differently. So from this particular hadith that is mentioned here, of those general benefit or ahkam that can be derived from this particular hadith, that it shows concerning that one, as mentioned, that is a dalil regarding the person who drinks or eat or carry out of those acts during Ramadan, the daylight hours of Ramadan. So this hadith concerning man nasiya wa sahim would mean that the person is observing siyam at that point. So it's observing the act of siyam, where he should be abstaining from eating and drinking and sexual actions during this time. But this person fell into this by way of out of forgetfulness. They mentioned that it mentioned akla wa shurb more so because this occur more frequently. That this may occur more frequently, God, a person may forget and eat and drink. So that's what the hadith kind of somewhat the hadith mentioned this particular case of eating and drinking as occur more often, compared to intercourse. So this one occur more often, but in general, that the person can eat or drink or any other act that is forbidden in Ramadan, that he was to commit this regarding of those things that the muftadat of siyam, then his siyam is considered to be valid. He is to complete the day. So as of the ahkam regarding concern that the person wants to do so out of forgetfulness, then his siyam is still considered to be sahih, is still considered to be valid. The person, when you realize or is reminded by others, is for the person to discontinue and not to continue eating, and for the person also to complete that day of siyam and not count that day as being missed, but rather it is counted as a day of fasting, even though he have eaten or drank something. So that's concerning those matters that pertain to the hadith. So there's no, as for the ruling, there's no qada. If he was to do so, he is not to make up that day, and also there's no kafara. There's nothing, no kafara that is attached to this. So the person, so there's no expiation for this act. So the person has mentioned that, and that's concerning what is mentioned by the ulama regarding this particular matter. And that's the call of jumhur of the ulama regarding concerning what we have just mentioned. Then that's the view taken by the jumhur of the ulama, and amongst those regarding from the Sahaba, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Zayd ibn Thabit, also Abu Hurairah anhu, Ibn Umar, and the likes of the Sahaba, who is of the view that the person who eats or drink or fall into any of these acts during Ramadan, the daylight hours, then for the person that to stop when he has been reminded or when he remembers, and his siyam is considered to be valid, and there is no making up of that day, nor is for the person to make any kafara, expiation for what he has done. That's the call of jumhur of the ulama. But then we have concern at the call of the jumhur, it would include concerning that the view of the Hanafiya, the Shafi'iyya, and the Hanabila. So they are of that view regarding that's the path and the route the person should take, that there's nothing to be done, he just continued fasting for that day. But then also there's a view of Imam Malik rahimahullah. So there's a view that is taken by Imam Malik rahimahullah, where all concerning that, and also Ar-Rabi' al-Rahi. So Imam Malik and also Rabi' al-Rahi, that they have the view that if the person wants to eat or drink out of nasiyan, forgetfulness, in the night, in the daylight of Ramadan, that they mention, فَإِنَّهُ يُفْسِدْ صِيَامُ, that his sawm is considered to be invalid. So for them, if the person was to eat or drink out of forgetfulness, then for Imam Malik and Rabi' al-Rahi, that his siyam is invalid. That sawm is, that day is invalid. And for the person to make qada, for him to make up that day. Because they're all concerned that, and they make a form of qiyas. So they said, for example, their qiyas on this, that they mentioned that one, that abstaining from food and drink is of the arkan of siyam. So of those main pillars of siyam is the person not eating and drinking during the daylight hours. So if the person was to forfeit this, then he has done a big thing. So they said that take into account, or they said qiyas, if the same thing with salah. If the person or wudu was to nullify past wind. Nam, out of, we said now out of unintentionally, or the person's salat was to do anything in salat that not that his salat is invalid. So the person was to speak, start to talk. Normally take out his phone and start to speak to someone on his phone in the salah. His phone is his salat will be deemed to be invalid because he's speaking normally during the salah. So his salat will be invalid. So they said the same thing applies. With a person that is intentionally or unintentionally, his salat is invalid. So they said the same thing applies to siyam. So whether intentionally or unintentionally, they said the person is forfeiting one of the pillars of siyam, so his act is invalid. But that view that has been based upon qiyas, and concerning now we have a dalil that is mentioned in hadith that is in Bukhari and Muslim, then this kind of some of that hadith take precedent over qiyas. So the hadith will take precedent where the Prophet clearly stipulates what to be done in such case, so that would take precedent over the views of or any view that contradicts this. So that's concerning that particular matter. So even though you might have said that kind of some teachers explain that, that in some of those matters that we may see that may seem very straightforward based upon the hadith. That seem very straightforward, but some of the ulama sometimes may take a view based upon other reasons. Now they see as a dalil that they can use, but a dalil doesn't per se maybe to the degree that it is acceptable. So that's concerning of those matters that is discussed. Then I mentioned that, so that's concerning of those matters that is taken from this particular hadith, that of the primary matter. And from the hadith it shows regarding that the hadith can somewhat also reinforce that of those things regarding that eating and drinking and the likes, that intentionally, that eating and drinking while fasting is of those things that invalid the person's siyam. It's of those things that will make his siyam invalid. And except in the case of nisyan, except in the case of the person did it out of forgetfulness. So generally, the general rule is that eating and drinking nullify the person's siyam, unless it was done out of forgetfulness. And forgetfulness is a person that's now he didn't remember. So if the person did not remember and he didn't per se did amdan, that was the intent, like the person that, then it is deemed to be nesyan. So he forgot and put something in his mouth and started eating, then remember, or someone remind him that, aren't you fasting? Then he stops. Of the thing that they discuss that comes next with this, if the person upon remembering or is reminded, told by someone, and he has things in his mouth, is he to swallow this or to spit it out? So he has been reminded, he recalled that I'm fasting, but he still has things in his mouth. There's this thing is in his mouth. So the person is not to swallow this. Now it is for it to be spit out. And the same, the person has something in his hand and put to his mouth, then it is not to take it in. Now, so the general thing that whatever he has in his mouth or in his hand or in front of him, the person should not continue to eat of those things. Now, so that's concerning of those ahkam that relates to this particular matter. So it shows again concerning the mercy of Islam, that Islam is not there to make things difficult, and also that Islam take into consideration, and the Sharia and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ashara, that at times we may do things out of forgetfulness, that this does occur with human beings. So at times things may occur with things that have done out of forgetfulness, and that is somewhat is a different, that is looked upon the Sharia with concerning special rulings, that are special rulings regarding at times where these things occur, and then there's special rule that goes along with this. So the hadith, that's concerning that particular hadith regarding that matter, which is to highlight concerning of those cases that does occur with Bani Adam, with human beings, that one may eat or drink out of forgetfulness. They mention a masala regarding concerning this matter. So I will mention that there's no qada upon the person who may fall into such a case regarding this particular situation that may occur. They mention if the person thought that he broke his fast. He thought that he broke his fast, but then he started to eat and drink. But in reality, he didn't break his fast. He thought so, but he didn't. And so he started to eat based upon the assumption that he thought he what? Broke his fast. Clear? The picture? What is the so out upon this perception that he has, that he broke his fast, but he didn't do so. And then he started to eat.
You mean that it was time to break fast?
No, there's no time. And said that, so he may be close to the time, but he thought that for something occurred, was that of those cases, the person thought he broke his fast. Time close to that time, so he thought I broke my fast, but really still out there, still time for siyam. So based upon that assumption that he has, that he thought he broke his fast, then he just started to eat. Then that one is because that assumption is that the person concerned that was until the person was is for him to make certain what he's doing. So these things concern a person. So sometimes the person at time the Muslim is upon him to make to assert to make to be certain regarding what he's doing and not base certain things based upon assumptions, but based upon yaqeen, based upon certainty, not assumption, especially if it is still the time of siyam.
That principle, does that apply to when there's time to start fasting? The person, they're not too sure, they want to finish their meal, but maybe the clock says 52.
It will come to that time concerning suhoor. So, the time before fasting, and time before suhoor, and it means to the person that we discussed that the concerned person regarding that matter at that point. But the general thing concerning the general thing is that if it's the person regarding of breaking of the fast, then it is done when a person is certain that it is time to break fast. But not based upon wrong assumption, So the person to verify by either asking or kind of someone to find a method to verify before he takes certain actions, before he carries through on certain actions. The next hadith that they discussed would be hadith number 10, the 10th hadith, hadith al-ashir, that they mentioned, the hadith that he labels concerning hadith. Did I miss a hadith? Okay. أي حديث العاشر التي mentioned concerning the hadith of Anas bin Malik رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله عليه السلام تسحروا فإن في السحور بركة. So I mentioned the hadith متفق عليه. So the hadith here, that I mentioned concerning the hadith of Anas bin Malik, the meaning concerning that, and the Prophet and the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have stated, take the suhoor, for indeed there is a blessing in the suhoor. There is a blessing in having the suhoor. So a barakah. So a blessing in having of this meal, pre-meal before suhoor. They mentioned from the hadith an evidence, a dalil regarding that we have been commanded or instructed or encouraged that one should have this suhoor before start fasting. So that's concerning of those things which is concerned to put an ease on the person who is fasting. So regarding a suhoor is concerned that this is that meal that is taken. So this sahur or suhoor that is taken, sahur meaning the last at the late in the night, and that and also the meal that is taken that they mention regarding concerning that of the thing the person that to have this meal before start fasting. And as we mentioned, that various benefit that is attached to that author rahimahullah or hafidhullah have mentioned the various benefit of this. So of those benefit concerning that, one, ittiba' as-sunnah. So regarding concerning of the benefit of this is ittiba' as-sunnah. So by the person taking the suhoor is fun of the sunnah. The instruction of Prophet Islam is that we should do so. Second of those benefits that they mentioned regarding that's in the barakah. It is stated as a barakah with in doing of this, and also third, the of the benefit that khalif al-yahud al-nasa'il kitab. So also taking of the suhoor is the person being indifferent from the ways of the Ahl Kitab, the Jew and the Christian. Nam. So that's concerning of those benefits and other benefit. Then also it helps and yuqawwi al-insan ala siyam. It helps to strengthen a person regarding siyam. Nam. And also is ibadah. So taking of the suhoor helps to give the person that strength regarding while fasting. So as Islam mentioned, so of those things that show that a clear distinction between the Muslim and the Ahl Kitab, as he mentioned, al-fasl ma bayna as-siyamina wa siyam Ahl Kitab aklatu sahur. That of the difference between us and Ahl Kitab regarding their siyam is that we eat of suhoor, that we eat of the sahur. As for them, they do not eat the pre-dawn meal. Nam. And also mentioned hadith, so as concerning that hadith, regarding that particular discussion. So also of those benefit that comes along with taking of the suhoor. Also with the suhoor, they have different aqwal or different things. That one, that it is that meal that is taken as like a light meal that is taken before the person starts. There's nothing that says it has to be this or that, or specify what can be eaten. So the person take what is within the ability to eat and to drink, as though we are preparing oneself for the day of fasting. Where the person sometimes overeat or take too much of a large meat, it can make the person lethargic and lazy and sleepy. So the system is to make it somewhat simple, not too much. The person become lazy throughout the day and sleepy. So the person tries to avoid those things as the so of those things that they mention regarding the suhoor. Some of the other matters that is mentioned regarding this, that the time in which to be done. As for the time that is to be done, ideally the ulama discuss concerning when the person take this meal. When is the time? So discussion is to be done after the last of the ulama, all that is to be eaten after the last half of the night. So divide the night into two halves, into half, the first half and then the second half, to try to take it within that time. So for example, the night Maghrib is at 8 o'clock, or just say 7 o'clock. What time is it now? It's 7 o'clock, and that we pray Fajr, say 5 o'clock. So the difference between both, from 8 till 12, is 4 hours, and we said the Fajr is 5 o'clock. That's 5, so that is 9 hours for the night hours. After that would be 4.5 hours. So the person he takes that meal anytime after 1 o'clock. According to those who mentioned that to be taken in the last half of the night. The last half of the night. Then you have also mentioned that the person taking the last third of the night. It should be preferred, and the closest is able before Fajr. Closest to the time of Fajr. But so you have that view between the ulama where they differ as to what is the more preferred time, but a person take it at the time which is closest to Fajr, before Salatul Fajr itself, or the time of Fajr. Then they mention concerning what the ulama of the ulama of the Malikiyyah, so that's concerning the more preferred time for it to be taken, to be eaten. Then I mentioned that one of the ulama of the Malikiyyah, who's in a book concerning ad-Dusuqi, that he mentioned fi hashatihi ala Shar Kabir. So you have Dusuqi, one of the ulama of the Malikiyyah, that in a book concerning Ahashi ala Shar Kabir, that he mentioned al-aql, concerning people having this meal, eating qabla nisful layl laysa suhoor, that a person eat before the middle of the night, then that is not considered to be a part of the suhoor. Clear? So anything that is done before in the first half of the night is not deemed to be a part of suhoor. It has to be done after the second half of the night. That's and next matter they discuss. So the person somewhat that so the person is allowed to eat and drink until he is certain with ulama that if the person have doubt, the person is in doubt regarding is it time for Fajr, as Fajr enter or not, as the time for Salatul Fajr enters or not. and he wants to eat. Can I continue to eat? Because he's uncertain. So what to be done in that case? So he's uncertain. Is the time of entered for me to stop eating or not? He's uncertain, unsure. So is it allowed for him to eat then with certainty? So that you have concerned the ulama, you have a view of the ulama. So you have two aqwal. You have a view concerned that يجوز له أكل والشرب والجماع. So one of the view of the ulama, the person is allowed to eat and drink out of a relationship until he's certain that Fajr is in. So because he has doubt, that means the doubt is about it coming in. So he's allowed to eat and drink until he's certain the time has entered. That's the qawl of the jumhur of the ulama, that a person is allowed. Then you have a second view regarding that particular matter, which is yamna. The second view, yamtana, that a person is to abstain from eating and drinking because إذا كان شاك. And that's the qawl of Imam Malik. So the person of doubt, then leave that which is doubtful, that which is not doubtful. Leave that which is doubtful for that which is not doubtful. The person of that doubt is to leave away eating and drinking. That's concerned aqwal of the ulama on that particular topic. And next matter to discuss, that a matter which is concerning if the person is having a suhoor and he hears the adhan that the time has entered, but he's eating. Is he allowed to continue or should he stop? So you have here in the adhan indicated that time of Fajr is in, but he's in the process of eating. The sort of meal is in front of him and he's eating. What is to be done in such a situation? Is he allowed to continue to eat his suhoor? Is there any leniency for him to do so? Or he must immediately discontinue from eating because the time has now entered. And this discussion, it kind of somewhat revolves concerning is a hadith. There's a hadith about the Prophet ﷺ that the hadith is mentioned by stating in the Ahmed and others, where state إذا سمع أحدكم النداء وإناء على يدي. So the hadith meaning that if any of you were to hear the nida, which is the adhan, وإناء على يدي, and he has a glass or a vessel, a cup in his hand, nam, فلا يدعه حتى يقضي حاجته منه. Then he is not to put it down until he has fulfilled his needs. Regarding that, he continue to eat until he fulfill his needs. That's the general meaning of the hadith. So that hadith will mention that a hadith that is narrated by Abu Hurairah anhu upon the Prophet ﷺ, and the hadith is narrated by Imam Ahmed rahimahullah. So this hadith that you find that is a discussion between the ulama regarding the authenticity of this hadith or the hukum on this hadith. So the discussion between the ulama, what's the hukum on this particular hadith, is authentic or not? So you find that of the ulama, you have Ibn Abi Hatim of the ulama that all the hadith to be da'if. Of the ulama have criticized this hadith. And mentioned the hadith comes by two tariq, it has two chains. This particular hadith is Ibn Abi Hatim in his book Al-Ilal, that من طريقتين ذكر في إحداهما أن أباه رجح وقف that some of the ulama, which is his father Abu Hatim, that he owed the hadith to be mawquf upon Abu Hurairah and not hadith upon the Prophet ﷺ. So it said one of the narration of this hadith that he owes that the narration, it goes back to Abu Hurairah anhu and not goes back to the Prophet ﷺ. That's one narration. And the second one that he mentioned, ليس بصحيحة, that the second narration, it is not authentic. So you have two narration of this hadith. One, the more correct one, he mentioned Abu Hatim, that is the statement of Abu Hurairah, and the second hadith, then it is not authentic. So show that both hadith does not go back to the Prophet ﷺ, according to Abu Hatim, as mentioned by Ibn Abi Hatim in his book Al-Ilal. And you find that Shaykh Muqbil ibn Hadi has a book that he called Ahadith Mu'alla, Hadith Mu'alla, that he mentioned his hadith and the hadith to be that it is not authentic. Now, they find others amongst them of the ulama of contemporary time, Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah, who hold the hadith to be sahih. So Shaykh Al-Albani takes the hadith to be sahih, but as was mentioned, that discussion is there between the ulama regarding this particular hadith. So ahwath, that the person that not to eat, because so ahwath for the person not to eat. Now, best for the person not to eat, so to come out of this confusion. Because there are those who say it is not authentic, and those who say it's authentic. So the best thing, And we said the ones who say it's not authentic, they give clear proof. Regardless, they said that's simple, but they have mentioned the hadith is daif and they're given their reason. So if the person, unless the person has studied and he's confident regarding the whatever ruling, then for him to abstain from this. This practice. And also that the next thing regarding if the person may hold it to be authentic. If one was to hold it to be authentic, then doing it in front of the masses where those people may be ignorant regarding this discussion. So you're sitting with people who are the general mass of the Muslim, and you there, they see that in a person mutadayyin, that you are practicing Muslim and you're eating while the adhan being called and thinking, what is he doing? Then they kind of somewhat look to you in a unfair way. They say this person is like, you're eating when you're supposed to be fasting, and you're unable also to explain your case. But one of the ulama has said this, so I'm following, but you cannot explain it thoroughly to the people, then abstain. Because of that rift between yourself and a Muslim, there's no need. Unless you're a person of standing, that if you do it, they'll kind of somewhat respect what you're doing and somewhat, you can educate them. If you're unable, then leave it. If you're unable, leave it. Allahu Alam, I'm more inclined towards the view concerning the hadith is daif. I'm more inclined towards the view that the hadith is daif, so this practice is not to be done. At all. That's something in brief regarding those particular matters, those brief regarding some of those matters that relate to that particular hadith. So I mentioned concerning suhoor, barakah, and the ulama mentioned that the hukum regarding eating of the suhoor is something which is an ijma, that it is something which is mustahab. But a person who doesn't eat it, then he's not doing something which is sinful. So the person wants to leave it, then doesn't fall into a sin, but doing the act itself is something we consider to be mustahab, something which is highly recommended. No one says it is wajib to do so. It is not wajib, but it is mustahab to do so. Aywa. It could be drink or food. It could be a shake, or what we call a shake. Anything the person take anything, even they said could be dates and just water. So anything the person takes as something before just water by itself, that's sufficient. It could be a meal, a light meal. We said that every meal it comes with that, you understand, laziness and all that, but a journey in the person have something before he starts fasting, before Fajr enters, before the time of Fajr enters. Aywa. They wash their mouth. In that case, they can swallow what they answer that they can answer that they can swallow that, but better if they wash their mouth. Better for them to wash their mouth. That's concerning hadith and those ahkam that can be taken from that particular hadith regarding, after said the general things that encourage the Muslim regarding not leaving away this act of suhoor, not leaving away this act of taking that pre-dawn meal before a siyam. So you find that other mention concerning that taking of dates is something, then those things. Also the same thing regarding of we discussed iftariyat or come after. So that's concerning a suhoor. So I'll go to the next hadith that is mentioned. So we'll go to the hadith that follows. So according to what I mentioned concerning hadith, he mentioned, and Sahl bin Sa'd radiallahu anhu, أن رسول الله عليه السلام قال لا يزال الناس بخير ما أجلوا الفطر متفق عليه. So he mentioned concerning the next hadith concerning the hadith of Sahl bin Sa'd radiallahu anhu, that the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have said لا يزال الناس بخير, that concerning people not remain upon goodness, meaning concerning ما أجلوا الفطر, until except that those people they still hold to being hasty in performing breaking off their fast. That's concerning the next discussion regarding what has been mentioned here, which the hadith is to be used as a dalil regarding the encouragement regarding being hasty to perform to break off one fast. So when the time has come in for the person to try to break his fast immediately. And that's when a person is certain that the time is in to break his fast. So the person, as soon as the time comes in for the person to break his fast immediately. So after the matter they discuss concerning, is it dependent for the person that the person need to wait to hear the adhan before he can break his fast? So it is not dependent upon the adhan. It's dependent concerning the time that is entered. So if the time of Maghrib is entered and the person knows for certain, then he can break his fast. Because if the person who is the mu'adhin at time may delay it, then it's for the person to follow the timing that has entered and not necessarily wait upon the mu'adhin. But the person knows that the mu'adhin that is on point or on time regarding calling the adhan, then you go with him. Then you go along with him. One of the Shaykh of Yemen, that died, Shaykh Muhammad Wahab, rahimahullah, that he mentioned that of those things that sometimes in Ta'jil al-Fitr, that some of the people say we look outside, like, and they're in a masjid, and they're breaking their fast, and everyone's still waiting. And the Imam somewhat he's trying to be precise regarding the timing. But that person may look and say, I saw it for myself, as far as I can see, and he's in a big city. You understand? Sometimes it can be a bit blurry in big cities. So he wants kind of somewhat, I want to be on the sunnah, and I want to do things according to the sunnah. So he said, I'm going to look for myself, and for me, the time has entered, so I'm going to break my fast, even though everyone in the masjid is still waiting a few more minutes. So he has preceded people by several minutes. You understand? And he believes that, he is doing it on the right time, but they are following concerning the calendar, that they think to be precise. So he said, in that scenario, go with the people in the masjid. To think that you, the individual, looking out in we call it outside, are you certain of what you're seeing? You understand? And the adhan in the masjid usually on time, then go to the masjid. Go with the masjid. But if the masjid is way off, they're 10 minutes late, then go with the timing. Go with the timing concerning what can be spotted or the correct time that the salat or Maghrib enters. If the masjid that they delay the adhan for, you understand, for too long, 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 5 minutes, and they still haven't called the adhan, and the time is in, then don't wait for the adhan. Do not wait for the adhan. Also regarding concerning that ta'jil al-fitr, of that concerning ittiba' as-sunnah. So of the benefit is the person following the sunnah regarding this particular act. So that's of the benefit, and other benefit also going against Ahli Kitab and Ba'd Ahli Bidah in our times where of Ahli Bidah, that they intentionally try to delay breaking of their fast. They break their fast later on. So we have been instructed to be quick, hasty in breaking a fast when the time actually comes in. So the person try to stick to this. And also fihi taysir ala nas. So breaking the fast immediately also taysir. We make it easy upon the person not to overly extend or carry on your fasting. And also the person can somewhat also, it shows the person that not going into ghulu. So it's a person who delays. Now I'm sure that in the quwwah that I have strength, that you want to delay it, then that's contrary to sunnah, and that sometimes is a sign of ghulu, where the person trying to go overboard, where the time that has been set has entered. Then go with this. Why you want to extend that time? Maybe you have stronger iman, or whatever the person may think. Then those things is not an indication of quwwatul iman, but rather concerning al-jahl. So the person not to delay it unnecessarily for no reason, intentionally. But the person uncertain, then he goes with what is certain. If it means that go to date a few minutes after to make sure that you feel more confident with, because of that doubt that you may have. So go which is certain, which is leave with that which is doubtful. And if it means delaying a few minutes, so you have more confidence in what you're doing, then go that way. Take that way and feel more convinced with that, then go that. But without going overboard. Without going overboard in that. And also it shows regarding the third concern that it shows the person muhafid al-hudud al-shar'iyya, that a person also when he breaks fast at a time that has been stipulated, that it shows the person that he's trying to stay within line of the sharia. So the sharia give a fixed time regarding starting and ending, then don't exceed this. Do not exceed those boundaries. As for concern that al-fitr. This is also concerning al-tamr, that that al-tamr, which is the wet, moist one, or the dry ones, dates, or water, or if the person cannot find any of those things, whatever is available to the person. Nam, whatever is available to the person to break his fast, but those things are more ideal. Nam, to break the person's fast. So they mentioned that certain persons also to avoid that can be too much acid in his stomach for not eating for too long cannot be good for the person. So the person can somewhat try to but make it and that breaking of the fast that to be done before salah. It to be done before the person enter into the salah. So before you enter the salah, at least you know that you have broken your fast, you have something to eat or something to drink. I said no, it should be something which is a light, something is a light meal again. Not something very heavy type of thing that the person immediately start to when you break fast, take something heavy, is a lot on the stomach from not eating for long hours. Now so it becomes heavy upon the stomach. So those things the person to be mindful of. And also that the person does not need to wait until the end of the adhan. So breaking of the fast, ta'jil, al-fitr, not for the person to wait until the end of the adhan to break his fast. The person from the first Allahu Akbar, break your fast. So at the start of the adhan is when a person break his fast, not at the end of the adhan. Not at the end of the adhan. So for example, another scenario, the person was inside his house. Now away from the masjid, and he's with his family in the house. Now, the time comes in, a person break his fast and then call the adhan. So break the fast and then call the adhan. Break the fast and then call the adhan. Taib.
Say is it like break their fast, like just have something quick and small, and then pull it down, or can they have a light meal?
There's a person like he's the mu'adhin. Nam. Then for the mu'adhin, then just take maybe one date, a quick something very quick, and then call the adhan. Then can return to his eating. You understand? But for him, because people are waiting. You understand? So for him to, you understand? So especially in our setting, that people are waiting. So for him to eat and take his own little time, and while people are waiting to hear the adhan, eats a call the adhan. Immediately it comes in, so he breaks fast with something one date, eat, have something in his mouth, drink something or whatever, and then immediately call the adhan as quick as possible. But not for him to somewhat to take his own time in eating. That's concerning of those regarding concerning this matter that is mentioned. Of the thing that they discuss concerning of breaking of the fast, as the author that they discuss concerning, is there any specific supplication to be said upon breaking one fast? Is there specific supplication to be mentioned upon breaking of one fast? So you have several hadith that discuss concerning upon breaking of the fast, what to be said. You have some hadith which is general that mention about concerning that thalatha da'wat la yurad or la turad, that there's three groups of people that their supplication is not refused or rejected, meaning that they're answered. One of them being as-sahim hatta yuftir. So one mentioning concerning Imam al-Adil, a Imam who's just. The second, sahim hatta yuftir, the sahim person until he breaks his fast. And the third, madhloom, sahib al-zulm, someone who's been oppressed. Nam. So the general concern those hadith, there's some discussion regarding all those hadiths. But the ones that are more general, that they are more authentic than the ones that are specific. So the ones that are specific I mentioned, a specific supplication to be said, those ones are da'if. And they have two hadith, or several hadith. But of those ones concerning Allahumma, regarding concerning what to be said upon when breaking fast, you have the hadith mentioned Allahumma, or mentioned Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasa'at, the hadith concerning that. You have sumtu ala rizqun, mentioned Allahumma. So you have some hadith that are mentioned. Of those hadith concerning ذهب الظمأ وابتليت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. All those hadith are da'if. So hadith I mentioned specific supplications to be said upon breaking the fast those are weak. And the ones that are more general are more acceptable. Are more acceptable. As I mentioned, ثلاثة لا ترد دعوتهم إمام عادل الصاهم حتى يفطر ودعوة المظلوم. So those are the three. So the hadith that is under some discussion, but it all concerns the hadith that it is somewhat authentic with other narrations. But as for the hadith that specifically mentions certain supplication, that those ones are da'if. Those ones are da'if. Then after rahimahullah, so after that discussion, then he goes into the next hadith that he mentioned here concerning min hadith, as he mentioned here concerning the 12th hadith concerning min hadith Abu Hurairah anhu قال قال رسول عليه السلام الصيام جنة فلا يرفث ولا يصخب وفي الرواية ولا يجهل فإن امرئ قاتله أو شاتمه فليقل إني صاهم مرتين متفق عليه. So he mentioned our next hadith, or the hadith is somewhat been mentioned before, but he mentioned also another wording or other additional wording of this particular hadith regarding concerning the virtue of Ramadan, and that is mentioned regarding Ramadan. So he mentioned also of Siyam. So the hadith is somewhat is to discuss concerning of the virtue of Siyam, and also how the Muslim should behave and carry himself while fasting, of those behavior adab that is expected from the Muslim while he's fasting. So he mentioned regarding they mention concerning ما يجب على صاحم تركه. So of those hadith, that this hadith concerning, as mentioned there, what is upon the Muslim while he's fasting, what is upon the Muslim that he should observe while he's fasting, and things that he should leave away. So are certain type of action and behavior that it becomes it is unbefitting for a person who's fasting. So for the person who's fasting, that there's thing that is wajib of the arkan of siyam that he has to observe, that is a must. Out of those things that al-akl wa shurb, eating and drinking, and relation, that is clear-cut regarding of those things the person should avoid while fasting. But also there's other additional things that is expected from a person who's fasting. So one, everything which is haram still remain haram in Ramadan. So ghiba, namima, sarika, qatl al-nas, all those things is haram in Ramadan, outside Ramadan, before and after, and during Ramadan. Nothing changed for those things. So haram remains haram before, after, and during Ramadan. So for the Muslim regarding of his siyam, that not just to put all his attention regarding of those main things regarding not eating and drinking, but also for him to be mindful regarding of those things that one can neglect, regarding concerning how one behave during while fasting, and things that we may say or do that is unbefitting, or maybe things that is haram that we are neglecting. So of the hadith that the Shaykh he mentioned is to kind of somewhat to bring our attention to this, that regarding certain things that is unbefitting for the person who's fasting. So he mentioned a siyam junnah. So concerning siyam is a junnah wiqaya. So it comes to a barrier. So junnah regarding a barrier, fala yarfut. So of those things which concerning the barrier, a siyam in the dunya, where it becomes a wiqaya and a ma'asi. Where concerning a person who's fasting, a siyam, it stops and blocks the person from falling into sins in the dunya. As a person who's fasting, alhamdulillah, in most time, the person is more conscious, become more aware and conscious of his actions. So it becomes like that wiqaya that can somewhat it becomes like a barrier for the person falling in thing which is haram. And also wiqaya fil akhirah, where protect the person from an-nar. As we mentioned, so al-siyam also regarding wiqaya, a form of barrier where it can somewhat block the person from falling into an-nar. So it's concerning of the siyam, of the benefit of siyam. Then they mention of those things that a person should try to abstain from and try to avoid regarding those general things that one should be mindful of regarding فَلَا يَرْفُتْ وَلَا يَسْقَبْ. So of those things, the person not to say things that are things that we said words that are unbefitting. So concerning a person's speech and actions, that to leave away concerning idle speech, idle actions. Nam. So the Quran, foolish speech and action. So the person to leave away regarding those things that are unbefitting, talking about those matters that a person should avoid those things, and also getting into arguments, quarreling, screaming, shouting, those type of behavior that a Muslim should avoid. Nam. So for the person regarding that while fasting, to be conscious regarding his conduct and behavior, and how he function, and how he's looked upon by others. Nam. So in that thing, so of those things, that type of behavior regarding his speech and his behavior, that to avoid thing which is unbefitting. So thing which is said to be of things that the people of mention, wala yajhal, not the things of ignorance. Nam. So things of concern. So the person to avoid all those type of speech and behavior of the people of ignorance. So those things that are ways and behavior and conduct of the people of ignorance, and the people who like, and not to be one who like to argue and to quarrel while fasting, to leave those things. Nam. So that's so the thing of siyam is for a person to refine also his conduct and behavior regarding what is expected expected in his behavior at all times. And I mentioned, when Imrun qatalahu, and if someone was to attack you or abuse you, or shatamahu, or the person wants to fight you, or the person wants to attack you, or the person wants to abuse you, that he mentioned, فَلْيَقُلْ إِنِّي صَائِمٌ, for a person, as I mentioned, marratain, to say twice. That in this narration in the that he mentioned here, that it shows regarding the Muslim, regarding if a person is attacked or being abused, then the Muslim, as they say, not to respond with like, but rather the Muslim kind of somewhat, especially the person who's fasting, that for the person said, inni sa'im, I'm a fasting person, to remind himself, and also that person. Now, if that person, a Muslim, understand what is being said. If the Muslim will understand what is being said, but if that person, a non-Muslim, then for the person to say to himself in a sense of trying to remind himself as his own way of restraint, that I'm not to bring myself down to this person. Nam. So I mentioned inni sahim. So it shows regarding of the Muslim regarding that, as some of the hadith that I mentioned, man lam yada qawlu zur wa amal bihi, that concern the Muslim regarding his conduct, as in the hadith, man lam yada qawlu zur wa amal bihi, that the one who does not abandon or leave away qawlu zur, things of speech of falsehood, nam wa amal bihi, and act upon things of falsehood, wa jahl, or things of ignorance, falaysa lillah hajatun fi an yada ta'amuhu wa sharabuhu, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have no need for that person to leave away his food and drink. So I show that siyam is more than just leaving away food and drink. It also the person's conduct and behavior. The person also have to be mindful regarding his conduct and his behavior, and what he's representing regarding those things that attach to a siyam. So I show the Muslim, so the person, I mentioned, a response of the person is regarding if those things occur, is in a situation that the person can somewhat, that they mention it, قُلْ إِنِّي صَائِمٌ, that for the person that is able to can say, إِنِّي صَائِمٌ. Should it be said aloud or silently? I would say that if the person, they mentioned it can be said aloud as a reminder to himself, and also maybe for that person, if the person understands what is being said. So that's concerning of those things that relates to that particular Then let me discuss after then concerning that particular hadith in general regarding the Muslim that avoid those things. So it shows concern of the benefit of the hadith concerning that as-siyam is a form of wiqaya, a form of protection, a barrier regarding concerning the person falling into a thing which is haram, and also behavior that are unbefitting. Also regarding that as-siyam, like somewhat helps the person somewhat to learn his own self-cultivation, and out of the person to have his own self-restraint. By that, if he's attacked, it doesn't necessarily mean that if the person attacked at all times, the person need to respond back with in the same manner. At times, the person must have self-restraint. So, and also the person not to speak that are unbefitting, discussing things that are not befitting. So to be mindful of the things that are said. Speech about women and these type of and ghiba and namima, all those things for the person to leave them away. And quarreling and the likes, getting into argument, heated discussion, for the person to avoid those things in general. And also I showed, they mentioned on the hadith that jawaz Sa'im, that for a person that for the person can somewhat to let others know that he's involved in an act of ibadah, which is siyam, by saying inni sa'im. So you can somewhat letting the person know that you're doing this act of siyam, which is normal said that most people are unaware. Now, what is in this case? The person now, the person drawing the person attention that I'm fasting by saying inni sa'im. So you're letting the person know that I'm not responding, and I'm not responding because I'm a fasting person, and it's not befitting for me to belittle myself with a person like yourself. Now, so for the person to say so, it shows at times that a person can let others know what he's doing of act of obedience, but because there's a benefit attached to saying this or making this be known. There's a benefit attached to letting this be known to others, or you're trying to repel an evil. So those are the things that are attached to the person. Generally, can somebody try to conceal when he's doing acts of ibadah? But if the circumstance may arise and situation may arise, that a person can reveal this to others because there's a benefit attached to it, because there's a benefit to be gained from this. The next hadith that we'll mention, that he mentioned concerning that the 13th. Inshallah, we stop there, inshallah, and continue tomorrow, bi'idhnillahi tabaraka ta'ala, regarding concerning the hadith that follows. So that's concerned. So we end there with these set of hadith regarding of those things that relates to as-siyam, taken from the book of Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan, that is titled Muqtasar Ahadith as-siyam. That is a hadith about fasting, rulings and manners in by Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan, Hafidullah, Tabarak Ta'ala. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, we stop. Billahi tawfiq wa hadil as-sabil.